Now we're on section 13, the lining side panels, and we've got pieces F1 and F2, and like we did with the B1 and B2 for the exterior pieces, we need to put an F1 and an F2 together on both pieces, and we're going to stitch this curve rather than the one that goes completely round. This is the one that is like a wave, and we're going to stitch down there at the 3/4 inch seam allowance on both pieces. Now we've sewn together, as we did before, we need to cut some notches out of the seam. Goodness, my house is noisy today. I've got my husband clanging, clattering in the kitchen. I've got the dog chasing his tail behind me. I've got people shouting outside. I'm going to snip one way to start because I think it's just quicker. And then turn over and snip again. So, let's pull the triangles away. It's because I'm trying to do it at a distance and I can't see because my eyes are not brilliant. Okay, so there's the notches, and then we turn it right side out, and I get my tailor's ham, remembered the name this time. And as I did before, I just want to sort of stretch the seam out so that I know it's going to lay completely flat rather than doubling in on itself, if you know what I mean. So and then making sure I'm going to do the same with the other piece. And we need to get the halfway point on the lining body. So it measures 24.5, so 12.25. And I'm going to turn that around because I'm not sure about marking it there. So 12.25. Okay, I'll get my pins because I did find them better to use last time. And right sides together, place the seam where the mark is for the centre. And then go to the top and pin at the top. And again for the other side. And now we just have to go down, pinning along like so. I am sorry if you've got hearing clutters and clangings. My lovely husband's cooking me a roast dinner, and we are right next to the kitchen, so there's only the door between us, so you'll hear everything, I'm afraid. Okay, so this is where we start easing it in. A bit like getting a round peg in a square hole, or a square peg in a round hole, because the lining's straight and this is curved, so you just have to gently let it know that you're the boss. So if you do it at this angle, you see, rather than on the other side, it's more friendly pinning it on this side rather than the lining side, if you know what I mean. I'll show you in a second. So it's more friendly lining it there than if you were trying to pin it there. So it's much better to do it this way. I'm going to carry on pinning it, then I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to stitch around a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Right, so we've sewn the seams together at the ends, and I've cut notches in the curves, both sides, and turning it the right side out. Looks lovely. Now we're moving on to section 15, preparing the zipper gusset. And for that we need the pattern piece L, and we've got 2 exterior and 2 lining pieces. We turn them all face down, and at one end only we're going to put some double-sided tape, or you can use glue if you prefer. And the good thing is my double-sided tape is 1/4 inch wide, and we need to turn it over by 1/4 inch. So that's quite handy because it acts as a bit of a guide. Okay. So, been forever taking the tape off now. The backing off, shall I say. That's one. Oh goodness me, it's fighting me. That's got it. So I've also got next door's children right under my window shouting. So lots of noise today. Anyway, we've pulled the tape off, and we're just going to fold the one end of each piece over by 1/4 inch. Like so. And now we need to get our zip, the number 5 zip, that is, and we want to have it face down. And we want to get an exterior piece, and we need to have the right side up and the zipper right side down and the folded end at on the left. The zipper pull will be on the right. I hope that makes sense. I hope that's clear for you. And we lay some double-sided tape. Pull the tape off, or the backing off. And then lay the tape face down along the edge, like so. just gone a bit too far over the edge there because the zipper tape's slightly over. I want to make sure that I'm definitely in the right place. So that's better. And now we're just going to stitch along there at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Nearly forgot, before we stitch it to the gusset piece, we stopped 3/4 inch before and we put a notch in the zipper tape just cut a line and we want to fold it so that it's like that. And I use my micro stitch gun at this point. There you go. And now we stitch along the tape and we'll stitch over that to anchor it in place. So we've stitched along there and we've got this piece poking up, and we can cut off some of this excess now. And I have a lot of excess because I did cut a long piece of zipper tape, so don't worry, you shouldn't be having that much excess. And we get a lining piece. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue in there because it's not quite stuck down. I didn't do enough zipper tape, double-sided tape. That's got it. So I'm going to move this zipper out of the way at the moment. We don't need it to be here. And we need this now, and we want it to be face down, right side down, and make sure you've got your folded edge along here with the other folded edge of the exterior. And we want to put some tape along here. And remove the backing like so, and then making sure you're lining this folded edge up. It's really important this lines up. And then go along. It doesn't matter if this end is slightly off because it's going to be folded in on itself, but this one it's going to be stitched together the other way, and it just needs to be dead straight and neat. And now we're going to stitch across again, but we're also going to stitch the raw edge. So we're going to do 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're going to stitch down there and along. and stop. We're not going to stitch the folded edges. They do say to do 2 rows of stitching for added strength. I'm going to do them on top of each other though, not next to each other. Okay, so I've done a double stitching, and what we need to do now is cut that zipper tape right down to the edge, and we need to cut the corners on the seam we just stitched. And then fold the right side out. And that's why we did the double stitching, because it reinforces the corner so it doesn't burst open or anything. And I'm really pushing that corner out. It's not going to be perfectly sharp because I've used a very thick denim, but it's good enough. And then we need to press it. You really have to prise that down to get it to lay flat. Like I said, it's a very, very heavyweight denim, very stiff, perfect for the bag. And it's worth spending the time on pressing her. Just want to make sure that she's not, I say she, I don't know why I call her she. It's an it really, isn't it? Okay, so that's good. And now we stitch, top stitch. And this is the open ends. This is why I meant they have to align perfectly. It's very important. And they do. So I'll top stitch along there, all the way along and down. And then we're going to repeat the process on the other side of the zip. Okay, so this is nicely top stitched, and that's what I meant about them having to come together nice and neatly. So I'm happy with that. And now we want to, in fact I'm going to keep that together just whilst I do this bit. We're going to put the tape along the zip this time. Like so. Remove the backing. And we want to put the exterior fabric right side down onto that edge. But we need to line this up with that piece there as well, so that you have a good result at the end. I'm going to open the zip up now that I know where we're going, so it gives it a nicer fit, otherwise it warps it. And we still need to do the notch in the zip like before. That looks even. I just want to double check that it looks right. It's really important at this stage to make sure everything matches up nicely. Yes, that's lovely. So now we stitch along the edge there at 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now we've got the folded edge on this end, so we need to make sure that we've got that in the right place on the lining piece. So again, double-sided tape. And then making sure the folded ends match up nicely. Okay, and as before we go up there on the raw ends and along and stop. As before, cut the tape, cut the corners, and I did do 2 rows of stitching. I didn't film it because I forgot to film the first one, but I did do 2 rows of stitching again. and we need to press it again. This is a true recessed zipper. I know I did one before, and that wasn't what I call a true recessed zipper. This is the correct method if you want to do a recessed zipper. So I'm happy with that pressing, and then again as before we top stitch around the whole edges and sealing that end there. So here we have our completed zipper gusset. At this point you could do number 16, which is to add the zipper end tape. I choose to do it at the end when this is in place and I can see how much zipper tape I want left. So I would suggest, to be honest, you do the same thing. It is fine to do it at the end. So the next section will be 17, attaching the zipper gusset to the interior, and we shall come back with that.